Unemployment benefits for strikers, taxes you didn't see coming, laws that passed faster than you could read them, and of course, democracy dying in the darkness. It's episode 14 of the Evergreen Report, and it's not just about what Olympia's passed, it's about what they've locked you out of. And so far, it's been a lot. And some of it, they've locked you out in ways that you were just asleep, literally sleeping. Welcome back to Evergreen Report. I'm your host, Jay. Let's dig into all things going on right now in Olympia. So, first and foremost, this is coming out today, Tuesday, April 22nd, and I just want to mention that last night the House Democrats passed a bill that would allow for, of course, more taxes. The taxation that they passed last night was House Bill 2081, which would be $5 billion in taxes over the next 4 years. So this is the B&O tax, if I recall correctly. We haven't really covered this one in depth. This is actually coming out on the next episode of the Evergreen Report. There's just so many taxes, hard to squeeze them all in and get all of them covered and read. But 2081 did pass while we were literally sleeping last night. As you very well know, the Parental Bill of Rights went until nearly 2 a.m. last when that was debated. And so it's democracy dies in the darkness. The Democrats did shut the public out for almost 2 weeks as they created another budget. They have passed yet another budget to send to Governor Ferguson, which does include more taxes, things like that. You think they would understand the message at this point, saying, hey, Governor Ferguson, can you pass this? No, it has all these taxes, and they keep pushing all these taxes down our throat. A shocking amount of taxes, honestly. And so where we're at now on some of these things is we're currently at House Bill or Senate Bill 5041. Where we're going to start today is the unemployment for striking workers. This currently is sitting, waiting for the governor's signature. I would assume he's reviewing it and actually taking some time to think, am I going to do this? Am I not? I don't know. So in recap, I'm sure you heard about this one. It would allow the striking workers to receive up to 12 weeks of unemployment insurance or unemployment benefits only after a 2-week disqualification period. Striking must not be illegal under federal and state law. Applies January 1st, 2026 to 2031, 2035. Eliminates disqualification for workers in a lockout, even as part of a multi-employer bargaining dispute, also expires at the end of 2035. Limits the liability for employers. Benefits paid to striking workers are charged only to the separating employer. For lockouts, they are spread across the base of your employers. So, would anyone need this bill? So you're incentivizing those to go on strike. You're incentivizing people to go on strike. You're incentivizing people to go on strike against their business because they'll still get paid. Typically, a strike comes with the risk of losing money, not getting paid. It's kind of a big part of it. And I think the weirdest part of this is just that. Workers, they have now unemployment benefits available to them for if they go on strike, offering financial support in labor disputes, which that's kind of the part of the leverage, right? Is that they need to come back to work. So this really hurts businesses in that way. This bill does not include an emergency clause, which means it can be challenged via referendum by voters, businesses, and I'm sure it will be. This really hurts employers, hurts those facing strikes or small or unrelated businesses that are not directly charged unless overall UI fund costs go up, which it very well will cost more to fund unemployment benefit because there is less available to go around. Because now you're incentivizing people to strike, and that could last for weeks, if not months on end. Public employers, schools, cities risk having to litigate illegal strike to avoid paying unemployment costs. This concern was heavily raised by counties and school districts. So let's say all the teachers go on strike across the school district, multiple school districts next to each other. All those school district costs are going to be spread out along those 3 districts for the unemployment insurance, and that's going to cost the school district a massive amount that they don't have, that they're going to have to pay in one way or another, but they don't have it. Of course, this can also help the silver lining here, the Democrat lining in this bill is, what they're going to say it is, that makes it sound good. Helps low-wage and vulnerable workers avoid homelessness, hunger, or losing health care while striking. Again, if you're striking, that's kind of the risk you take, is not getting paid. Levels the playing field in labor disputes, especially when employers use starve-out tactic. That is an old tactic, mostly back from early union days, things like that. But why? Just doesn't make sense because it really ruins the leverage that the business has and kind of ruins the leverage for both sides if you think about it in that way. Because the leverage for the worker now goes from, okay, well, I need to push, fight. Oh, okay, now I don't got to fight as hard. Cool. If we go up a little bit, it's fine. Go back, kind of thing. Hopefully it can lead to a quicker turnaround, but it's there's a lot of unknown with this bill. It's really weird. Encourages fair bargaining instead of employer stonewalling. I mean, yeah, I guess. This is modeled on laws in New York and New Jersey, proven states with similar systems. So they do have similar systems to New York, New Jersey. Uh, Union calls it a safety net for workers. Critics call it a misuse of safety net meant for layoffs, not labor fight. And so it really goes into a lot of those areas between the two, and kind of tries to mediate these fights without really getting involved uh, and allowing them to happen. This breaks the original purpose of unemployment insurance, which is meant for workers unemployed through no fault of their own, but not those voluntarily withholding labor. See, that's the thing here. Like, unemployment insurance is there for when you lose your job unexpectedly, something happens, you get laid off, something like that. Not for those who just want to get paid a little bit more, want to change their benefits, whatever. This is really not meant for this. This could prolong striking while it shifting pressure onto employers, and communities. This could increase payroll taxes across the board if large strikes cause the trust fund to shrink. And then, of course, school districts and public employers being on the hook for benefits, even in illegal strikes, unless they pursue costly litigation. So it's not, if they really want to, which they probably won't have the funds to pursue costly litigation to prove that it's an illegal strike, this is just going to be even all the more difficult. So, this is a 12-week unemployment benefit for strikers in a major shift. So 12 weeks, 3 months that they can go on strike and still get benefits. This doesn't apply until 2026, so there's time to respond, repeal, reframe. The absence of an emergency clause is key here, so we still have time to challenge this via referendum. But there is no guarantee that lawmakers will act if things go off rails. If this turns into a catastrophe, there's no guarantee that they will do something about it. It may just be one of those things that they'll just let sit and say, "Well, you have this bill here, go use it." One of those things. And I did want to look up to, what will Governor Ferguson do once this gets to his desk? Because it's already on his desk. He has a history of supporting labor rights and worker protection. As Attorney General, he took action against practices that he viewed as detrimental to workers, such as filing an antitrust lawsuit against RealPage for alleged rent price fixing. During his gubernatorial campaign, he expressed openness to legislation aimed at limiting willingness to support measures that protect workers and tenants, as well as rent increases, things like that. While there's no public comment from Governor Ferguson, specifically addressing 5041, his track record suggests he may be inclined to sign a bill into law, especially if the final version aligns with his policy priorities. So it is likely, but we don't know. The bill's backed by labor unions, which are significant supporters of Governor Ferguson. Business groups and Republicans have expressed concerns about the potential financial impact on employers and the state's economy. And of course, the deadline is April 27th for him to sign this and get it going. So lots of things going on here with Senate Bill 5041. There's still time, of course, with no emergency clause in this bill. There is still time to go over it, to talk about it, to review it, challenge it via referendum, to still make your voices heard in one way or another. I would assume that lots of businesses will come together to support a referendum against Senate Bill 5041. So in other news, there are some things that are locked in, lots of bills. If you listened to yesterday's episode, I did do a breakdown on what an emergency clause is. So some of these things that we're going to talk about today, these bills, remaining bills that we're going to talk about over the next 20, 25 minutes or so, that are still locked in because they have an emergency clause. And so what that means, the biggest thing is that they will take effect right away. There is no date. They will be in law the second that they are signed. So Senate House Bill 1472, which closes the Rainier and Yakima Valley schools by 2027. House Bill 1531 blocks cities, counties from banning vaccine outreach or education. House Bill 2076 creates WADOs, agency to cut 2 rules for every one. That's one of the many things with the WADOs. Senate Bill 5801 raises gas tax, EV fees, and adds new transportation taxes. This is on peer-to-peer rideshare services. 5813 expands capital gains tax and estate taxes to fund education, and 5814 expands sales taxes services like tech, advertising, staffing. So to jump into this one, we already talked about Senate Bill 5041. It does not have an emergency clause. All the other bills today do actually have an emergency clause, which is at this point a used and abused tool that the Democrats are putting into nearly every single bill that they are pushing through, because it means it cannot be undone by the people. It means that you cannot have a single say about that whatsoever. And so it's just something to really, really consider. We'll come back to that. We talked about unemployment benefits already. Senate Bill 5814 and 5813 are a couple bills that I really wanted to touch on today. There's just more and more tax reform. So 5813 is a progressive tax reform for education investment. There's a capital gains tax, increases top rate for high income filers, keeps the base capital gains tax rate at 7%, as an additional 2.9 tax on Washington capital gains above $1 million, effective January 1st, 2025, collected in 2026. Applies only to long-term capital gains sourced in Washington, real estate and retirement accounts excluded. Revenue goes into Education Legacy Trust account, which supports early learning, childcare, education K through 12, and higher education. There's also an estate tax that's more progressive in this. It increases the exemption from 2.193 million to 3 million beginning in 2025, ties future inflation adjustments to new Seattle area consumer price index, fixing the technical issue, raising rate significantly a large scale estate from 20% up to 35% for estates above 9 million. So there is a lot here going on. This one does, of course, include an emergency clause saying that this act is necessary for the support of the state government and existing public institution and takes effect immediately. So that's the reason they're using the emergency clause in this one. So it cannot be undone via referendum. So voters would need to pursue a new initiative or future legislation to repeal or amend it, which is always so difficult to get in there. The intent of this bill directly from the bill itself, the legislature finds that high quality early learning and childcare is critical, and that our tax system remains the second most progressive in the nation. So this bill creates a public vote to uphold the capital gains tax in 2024, which was 64% approved as a mandate to expand progressive taxation for education. I don't remember voting for that. I don't remember supporting that. I really want to know the 64% that did, but that is also the problem here, is that we have the 5 counties that do rule them all here in Washington State. And if you don't live in one of those counties and you're blue, you pretty much don't matter. The rest of the state doesn't matter if you're not one of those. And so we really need some really strong people in all those counties speaking up, making their voices heard on all these and voting. Because every single vote in every single election matters. Some green flags here. It's the supporter arguments that targets the ultra wealthy. It funds K through 12 higher education, fixes the CPI problem, but mainly, makes Seattle CPI the state CPI, which isn't really feasible for every area that's not Seattle, because not every area has an exorbitant cost of living like Seattle does. This makes the state tax code more progressive, helping address income inequality, strengthens long-term education funding stability through dedicated taxes. Red flags here, of course, capital gains tax is already under legal challenge. Expanding it may fuel more lawsuits. Estate tax could increase high wealth residents to relocate. It could drive people out. We like those taxes, right? The taxes they do pay, still a significant amount. But let's raise it so that we drive them out. They will move. They're already moving to Idaho. They're already getting out of here. So I don't blame them. This could very easily impact family farms, small businesses, if estate protections aren't properly applied. And so they'll come after the money and they'll take these estates from families who work so hard to keep them within their family. So this is just, again, one of those closer steps towards a state income tax, which is plain and simple. Expanding the capital gains tax and estate tax discourages entrepreneurship and investment. Uses education as a cover for a broader redistribution agenda. The emergency clause blocks public dissent, deeply problematic in a tax bill. The high earners may move income out of state, undermining projected revenue. So if you raise taxes on those who are ultra wealthy and have this much money, they're going to just simply say, hey, you know what, I'm out of Washington. I changed my residence. I am not paying all that. I'm going to move to a state like Idaho where I'm going to be able to live comfortably, not have to pay as much, if any, taxes. I still get to operate my business in your state, kind of thing, for now, until they move their business too, because of the B&O tax, which we will get to in a future episode. So common sense here, let's just break it down. 813 won't affect your taxes unless you sell $1 million plus in long-term capital assets in a year, or leave behind an estate valued at $3 million or more. The money allegedly goes to education, but it further entrenches tax policy without voter input. This law may have limited support impact, but signals where Washington tax policy is headed: more targeted wealth tax. And that's exactly what 5814 is. Washington Tax Modernization and Public Services Funding Act. So this was actually increasing the sales tax, adds a retail sales tax, and retaliating B&O tax to the following formerly under tax services: IT consulting, tech support training, custom website software development, security and investigation services, armored car and temporary staffing services, advertising services previously exempt, data processing and digital automated services, DAS, and many types of live event-based and digital presentations. So targeting the tech sector, which, you want to keep tech in your state if you have a big tech market. You want to keep those guys in your state. You want to keep them happy. But, you can drive them out too. It's fine. So these are both moving into the House as of 419, so they are on the agenda to be heard in the Senate this week. And this also will, 5814, does also expand the tobacco tax to synthetic nicotine products as well. So this is another one of those bills that does that. Requires a one-time sales tax prepayment by large retailers effective January 1st, 2027. Any business with 3+ million in taxable sales in 2026 must prepay 80% of June 2026 sales tax by 2025, June 25th, 2027. So it's a timing shift, not a rate increase, intended to pull revenue forward into the 2025-2027 biennium. 10% penalty if businesses underpay or miss the deadline. Waivable is justified. And of course, this does include an emergency clause because it's necessary to support the state government and existing public institutions. So they're trying to pull money kind of wherever they can pull it in this budget deficit while also, taxing, let's go after businesses, go after small businesses. Let's find business we were already going after that we need, IT, tech support, training, website, software development, armored car, temporary staffing services. These things are all very important, but let's go after them and make them more difficult and pass more of those costs onto the consumer, onto the businesses that will be affected here. And, this closes tax loopholes that gave digital and synthetic nicotine sellers unfair advantages, modernizes the tax code to reflect a service-driven economy, generates reliable ongoing funding for education, mental health, substance abuse programs, long-term care, crime prevention, and to build a more resilient and diversified revenue base that doesn't solely rely on good-based consumption. So that's what the supporters say, right? And of course, on the other side of that, it adds sales tax to services that many families and small businesses rely on: tech help, staffing, security, advertising. And you make those jobs more expensive, they're going to lay off people, they're going to have to, and they're going to be harder to reach, harder to get a hold of. Um, and of course, which will lead to higher turnover in each of those industries as well. Also, higher costs, of course, expands the government access to revenue without voter approval. Of course, they don't want your input, they don't want your approval because they know you're going to say no. So that's why they're going to make it nearly impossible for you to say anything by just passing these bills, leaving you out of it, and then, of course, putting an emergency clause on it so you can't say anything, so you won't say anything. So it's a massive tax expansion, not reform. By taxing core business services, advertising, software, staffing, Washington hurts small businesses' competitiveness, raises costs for working class households indirectly. Many affected services support jobs, housing, and basic operations. Emergency clauses undermines democracy. Of course, democracy dies in darkness. Democracy dies in silence. And that's what they're doing, keeping you silent, keeping you in the dark on a lot of these things. So you don't know what the hell's going on right around you, right in your backyard, right in your front yard, right in front of you, of course. And then you go into something like House Bill 1472, which is very deep. This is another one of those laws that's like locked in. We've talked about this briefly. Is closing the Rainier and Yakima Valley schools by 2027. These are community care centers. This will force transitions out, even if they're unready, even if they can't do it, even if they're not able to do it themselves. This does have an emergency clause, so it can't be repealed or work via referendum. Community care is already overwhelmed, right? And now you're going to add more to the system. Essentially, a lot of these people who are in these cares don't have anywhere else to go. In these facilities, don't have anywhere else to go, and they're going to be stuck, possibly on the street. Not to be able to survive. There's lots of personal stories that have been pulled from this. Uh, you know, Employees saying there's going to be job loss, people's lives who have been changed here, uh, voices of inclusion. There's a lot here. We're gonna come back. We're gonna wrap back around to this as we go on. But I wanted to try to hit all these bills that have planned today. So House Bill 1531 is one that I really wanted to hit on today. This is being put out to the public that this is a COVID vax kind of bill. This is one that's gonna make you take shots, things like that. So I want to talk about this because it has been catching a lot of news, especially on social media. So what this bill does, it reaffirms that public health responses must be based on the best available science, including but not limited to vaccines and immunization. Requires state officials and local health officials to promote evidence-based, science-driven measures to control communicable diseases, ensure communities receive accurate, timely health information, prohibit cities, counties, or agencies from passing laws or policies that would ban the implementation or promotion of any evidence-based health tools such as vaccine education outreach or disease mitigation campaigns. Any such ordinances already in effect are declared null and void. Yes, this has emergency clause because, of course, they're going to say this act is necessary for the immediate preservation of public peace, health, or safety, and takes effect immediately. So when it has emergency clause, you need to be asking why. This bill does not mandate vaccines. It only prevents local government from blocking science-based health messaging and programs. Does not expand or reduce authority to require vaccinations or lockdowns. Focuses on public communication, outreach, and access to science-based tools. So this is a communications and public trust bill, not medical enforcement law. So it keeps misinformation-based public health bans. Of course, those are subject to personal opinion from becoming law. Protects science-backed research and school-based vaccine education. Of course, that is subject to interpretation. Of course, empowers communities to make informed decisions, especially during outbreaks, TB, syphilis, measles, things like that. Clarifies legislature's intent. No mandate, just protecting the truth-based health information. Opponent concerns. So those who are against this, the final version is on the governor's desk right now to be signed. I would imagine that this one will be signed by Governor Ferguson. This could be a stepping stone to mandates or broader state preemption of local health decisions. Critics say it reflects a state knows best mindset rather than respecting local control. And of course, all those things that they say that are science-based, evidence-based, are going to come from the state. They're going to come from within the state, within officials at the state level, and they're going to say the state knows best. This is the evidence-based research. This is what we're giving you, so you have to accept it, and this is what we're saying is right. So you need to follow it, kind of thing. So that is kind of one of the drawbacks here. Just something to think about as well. It was really interesting to see these bills and continue to discuss them. Jumping in here, Washington Doge. What the heck is that? WADOGE. It's a regulatory rollback, and it does include an emergency clause. I want to say I'm pretty sure I talked about this one. If I haven't already, I did mention it on a previous episode. Part of me is thinking that I already recorded this exact episode. I don't know why. But I don't think I. But so this House Bill 2076 creates the WADO. It is a agency tax which identifying inefficient, outdated, or unnecessary regulations and agency policies, reviewing whether agency actions are legal, overreaching, or ideologically motivated, recommending repeals, consolidations, and cost savings across state government. Requires every state agency to form a WADOJ team and review their rules and mandates by 2026. Establishes a rule that for every new rule created, 2 existing rules must be repealed. Requires economic impact analysis for new rules expected to cost over $1 million in the first 5 years. Prioritizes energy affordability, permitting reform, and consumer choice. Gas, stoves, vehicles, things like that. Declares intent to reduce ideological bias in agencies, especially on topics like social cost of carbon, election integrity, healthcare delivery, and K-12 education. Holds back 6% of agency budgets until they complete their WADOJ compliance. WADOJ expires July 4th, 2028, and must submit a final report by then. The only part of this I don't like is that it does include the emergency clause, which will make it take effect immediately as the bill states, to preservation of public peace, health, or safety. This bill is of course, one of those right-leaning regulatory reform packages with elements modeled after the 2-for-1 regulation model used by the Trump administration, proposals to curb agency overreach, concerns about the ideological politicization of administrative agencies. So there's rule rollbacks, budget leverages, economic analysis, energy and appliances, enforcement review, agency compliance. There's a lot of good here, right? The critics that are against this bill will say the bill may over-politicize the rulemaking process, especially with language targeting woke terms like social cost of carbon. This could be used to undermine climate and environmental rules, consumer safety protections, or diversity-related policies. Withholding 6% of every agency's funding may disrupt services or create compliance bottlenecks. Okay, then get it done. Get it done. Get rid of some stuff. Make your budgets more efficient, kind of thing. That's all I have to say here. If you don't like it, do something about it. Follow it. I really hope this could get further in the process. I don't think it will, just because it's a Republican-sponsored bill. I believe Senator Jim Walsh is actually the one sponsoring this one. So we'll see. We will see if this one gets anywhere in the process. I really don't think it will. Not this session. This one is one that may have to wait or come via initiative by the people, and they won't have any. We'll have to be able to vote on it as a state to see what happens. So, Senate Bill 5284, producer responsibility for recycling bill. This one does not have an emergency clause. This is currently waiting to land on the governor's desk as 419. It shifts recycling costs to packaging producers. It requires curbside pickup and standardized reporting. So this one does not have an emergency clause. But of course, guess what? Guess where the money is going to go? Are they going to take it on? Are they going to eat it? Are they going to eat the cost? No, never. Why would they do that? That's going to come to you and me and to all of our food, even though we have some of the highest food costs in the country already. So what this bill does creates a producer responsibility system for packaging and paper products. So PPP. All products or covered PPP must participate in the PRO. PROs will design and refund recycling programs statewide. Producers pay for recycling outreach, reporting, and end-of-life management, shifting costs from taxpayers. But don't worry, it'll come back to you, because it always does. Establishes a recycling performance system, statewide targets for collection and recycling rates by material type, paper, plastic, metal. Producers must report detailed data to the Department of Ecology. Penalties apply for noncompliance. A mandate curbside recycling access beginning January 1st, 2030. Local government must offer curbside recycling for all covered PPP wherever garbage collection is provided. Solid waste management plans must align with PRO requirements by that date. Protects labor and wages. Starting October 1st, 2028, material recovery facilities, MRFs, that handle under 2,500 tons per year must pay minimum industry standard wages based on local collective bargaining rates or highest nearby standard. This is a phased implementation, so it will go out between 2029, 2031, and 2038. This does not have an emergency clause, so it still can be challenged by referendum to make improvement, or not at all. There are penalties: $1,000 per day, $10,000 per day. What this shifts cost of recycling from taxpayers to producers. So this is the supporter argument. It creates a statewide consistency in higher recycling standards. Encourages eco-friendly packaging design and reuse innovation. Improves equity by requiring curbside access for all households. Aligns Washington with global and national EPR models that are around us in Oregon, Colorado, Canada. Red flags: this could increase consumer prices as producers pass recycling costs to consumers. Centralizes costs of recycling programs in large corporate-run PROs. Rural counties may face implementation challenges or infrastructure shortfalls. Some businesses fear this overregulates packaging innovation or requires costly compliance. Also, landfill volume may impact county solid waste revenues not replaced in this bill. So this is a hidden tax. Again, this is a hidden tax passed to consumers. Grocery, box good, packaging heavy items may all get more expensive. Because if they're having to pay more for all these things, they're going to pass those on to the price of you on the shelf in one way or another. This empowers private organizations to set standards, collect data, shape statewide recycling policy without full public oversight. Job protections for MRFs are union-driven carve-out, not rooted in economics. A lack of flexibility for rural low-volume areas could penalize small communities. Encouraging reuse and recycling is good, but this is a top-down mandate is a burden on businesses. So they all have to change if they fall into any of these, they have to change their packaging to something better, something more consumer friendly. There will be costs that will be passed on to us, to you and me on the grocery shelves that are already so high and so already unaffordable. It's just going to be passed on. Second to last bill here before we go back to 1472, because I really wanted to read some of those personal stories of that one to end. This is Senate House Bill 1163, permit to purchase firearms. This one does not have an emergency clause, so this can still be challenged via the referendum process. So thank goodness, because it's a direct impact on our Second Amendment right. This one's also waiting the final version to go to the governor's desk. It requires a 5-year permit, live training, and background check before you can even purchase a firearm. This will apply for all firearm purchases November 1st, 2026. It turns into an argument where supporters say this is common sense gun safety. You have to get a 5-year permit, live fire training, and background check before you purchase a firearm. Critics argue it's a de facto registry and violates Secretary SCOTUS ruling. So it is an impediment on your Second Amendment rights because, your Second Amendment rights say you can go and purchase a firearm as you will, as long as you pass the background check. This is going to add more steps into the process. Training, which is good, but the permit here, let's back up to the permit. A valid permit to purchase will be required before buying or transferring any firearm. Permits are issued by the Washington State Patrol Firearms Background Check Program. Applicants must submit fingerprints via local law enforcement, pass a certified firearm safety training program, pass an enhanced background check, pay a fee, cost covers of the program. Permit is valid for 5 years, renewable within 90 days or before expiration. So once you get it, you're good for 5 years. Okay. Training must include basic firearm safety and suicide prevention, legal limits, safe storage, and self-defense laws. Live training on a range minimum 50 rounds. Must be certified by Washington State Patrol law enforcement or a recognized training organization. Military, law enforcement, armed security, and private investigators may be exempt. This tightens concealed pistol license, CPL rules. Applicants must provide proof of concealed carry safety training or permit to purchase. Training also includes live fire requirement. Renewal and revocation process are restricted for consistency and tracking. Dealers must retain and transmit application and transfer all records for all firearms, not just pistols or assault rifles. Removes a 6-year retention requirement in favor of centralized digital records. Transfer may be delayed in unresolved criminal and mental health records. Applicant has an unresolved arrest. Pending criminal or commitment proceedings exist. Identity can't be confirmed. So transfers may be delayed when you're trying to purchase and they're trying to transfer that gun to you. Your permits can be revoked if someone becomes ineligible, convicted, committed under protection order. Local law enforcement is notified and must act to ensure no unlawful possession of firearms. So more burden on police, more burden for them to take action, more burden for them to go and find someone that allegedly pings on the register to go get them, kind of thing. The supporter argues that, of course, this will reduce gun deaths by ensuring training, background checks, and purchase tracking. aligns Washington with other states that have seen reduced suicide and homicide rates, protects communities most impacted by gun violence. CPL training helps de-escalate incidents and teaches firearm responsibility. It brings Washington closer to public health models on firearm safety. Red flags here is delays lawful self-defense. Victims of DV or crime may not be able to purchase a gun quickly. Creates a de facto gun registry as news tracking infrastructure. Live firearm training burdens to low-income rural and disabled residents. May be unconstitutional under Supreme Court interpretations. The Bruin decision, one of them. And of course, Washington State Patrol is already backlogged on background checks. This adds more pressure to them without more funding or more resources to do so. This adds bureaucratic hoops to a constitutional right, turning it into a permit-based privilege. Correct. Your Second Amendment rights are not a permit-based privilege. That's the biggest thing I want to touch on here. Your Second Amendment rights are not a permit-based privilege. They are something that is a Second Amendment right to everyone. Background checks and waiting periods, they already exist, so this is redundant and more costly. Training costs and fingerprint fees will disproportionately impact low-income families. Criminals won't comply with permit or training rules. Only law-abiding citizens will be affected. Of course, criminals don't care. They're not going to go get a permit. Yes, in theory, this is going to lower suicides, lower homicides, all those things, bring more awareness, all that fun stuff. But really, it's just to make you jump through hoops to get access to your God-given rights and the Constitution, your Second Amendment right. So if you want to buy a gun, you'll need to pass a safety class, get fingerprinted, apply for the state permit. This law won't go into effect until November 26th, but could be overturned via referendum. I can definitely see it being legally challenged. So many legal challenges that this bill will eventually die. Whether you see this as common sense safety or government overreach, it really depends on where you stand. I think everyone has a little bit different stance here on what this bill means, how it will affect them, and what truly is going on here. Okay, and so my final story here that I really wanted to cover, I touched on it very, very briefly there, but House Bill 1472, the institutional closes. So this closes the Rainier Valley and Yakima Valley School, two large state-run residential rehabilitation centers, by June 30th, 2027. Prohibits new admissions to either facility except for short-term crisis stabilization or respite services. Directs DHS to relocate all current residents. Offer state-appropriated living alternatives, so SOLAs, SOLAs, for those who want them. Use existing support living programs for residents choosing community-based care. Provide space in RHCs for those who want to remain in institutional settings. Offer employment transfers to staff at closing facilities. So even after they close, Yakima Valley School will continue to provide crisis stabilization and respite care beds based on regional needs and subject to available funding. Where this all came from was because they were told to stop admitting new residents. They were told to stop admitting new residents. They were told to stop it, no more. And then, of course, the revenue drop, which showed the state that this is costing too much. It's kind of step one of their grand plan here. This does have an emergency clause. Sections 1, 2, and 7 through 11 of the bill include emergency clause, meaning this act is necessary for immediate preservation of public peace, health, or safety, or support of the state government and its existing public institution, which directly goes against what this bill is. There is a need to preserve these facilities. There is a need to keep these public health facilities open because they are related to public safety. About 100 residents will need to be transitioned to new living environments. Staff of the two institution may be offered jobs at community-based settings or other DSHS programs. The Yakima and Buckley area will lose long-standing state-run care centers, impacting families, caregivers, unions, and local economies. Communities providers must face capacity gaps, workforce strain, or difficulty supporting high-needs individuals. The supporter arguments here, so there's people on both sides of this, believe it or not, that are coming out here and speaking up about this. And so modernizes disability care by replacing institutional settings with community-based alternatives. Supported living is less expensive, more humane, and better aligned with best practices. Rainier and the Yakima Valley schools have a history of abuse, understaffing, and regulatory failure, especially Rainier. Protects individual dignity and autonomy while providing oversight during transitions. Follows national trends and disability advocacy goals for deinstitutionalization. That's a word. Red flags here. Not all clients can safely or successfully live in the community. Community-based programs are already under strain, facing staffing shortages, long wait lists, and underfunded infrastructure. The loss of highly trained REC staff may lead to lower quality care in the community. Some individuals have trauma or medical needs that are best met in structured institutional settings. This is a budget-motivated closure disguised as reform. It's exactly what it is. You can argue that critics are just saying that. That's just your point of view, but that's exactly what it is. is a budget-motivated closure disguised as reform. Closing these institutions saves money short-term but could increase costs long-term through ER visits, hospitalization, or incarceration of those with severe needs. This shift passes ideology over practicality. Not every person is best served in the community. The emergency clauses remove the public's ability to challenge or delay closures, a red flag for accountability. Families and local communities should have more say in the care of their loved ones. This bill centralizes decisions to Olympia. So, what are people saying? So, the supporters, the advocates of this bill, argue that the institutional settings are outdated, that individuals with disabilities thrive better in inclusive community-based environments. So, Mike Raymond, a 78-year-old who spent 14 years at the Rainier School, recalls being tied to his bed, forced into labor. After leaving, he built a life with his family and became an advocate for closing such institutions. We've been fighting for a long time. He says, shut them down. So these three stories all come from Cascade PBS. Casey Brown, Raymond's niece and caregiver, emphasized the value of inclusion. If we have inclusion, we learn how to communicate with someone like Uncle Mike. It's just simple respect and regard. Stacy Dim, executive director at the ARC of Washington State, reassured that transitions will be handled carefully. The doors aren't going to close in one day. No one gets turned out onto the street. But we'll see what happens to those that take up until the day of close transition. When there's less and less staff, when there's less and less people there to help them, what happens to those people? We don't know. Opponents worry about the upheaval for residents who rely on the stability of these facilities and the potential loss of hundreds of state jobs, according to another article by Cascade PBS. Willis McNabb, a 34-year-old employee at Rainier School, expressed concerns for both residents and staff. A lot of people I'm working with are not going to land somewhere. He also fears economic repercussions for Buckley, where Rainier is the largest employer. So some families or current residents fear that their loved ones may not adapt well to new environments, potentially leading to distress or regression. So it's up to be seen. It's true that institutions have failed some people, but for others, they were a lifeline. We should not move people out of institutions till safe, sustainable alternatives exist, especially for the most medically or behavioral complex individuals. This bill sets a deadline with no guarantee the system is ready. And with an emergency clause, the public can't stop it, even if problems emerge. So once it's signed, once it passes, there's nothing that we can do about it, except through the initiative process. And you hope, you pray that someone out there has the wherewithal to push this as an initiative, or these buildings will go and Buckley will be devastated. The city, the town, the community, Yakima Valley School, these families, individuals will be devastated, and we will see what happens. Some of my final thoughts for you guys to think about as well. Senate Bill 5041 changes how we think about work stoppages in UI. It's the only major labor or tax bill this year without an emergency clause, which is really interesting. If they were really so passionate about this, why didn't they slap that on there at some point during this whole process? They didn't slap it on there. If you're organizing a referendum, I mean, you got one shot at this kind of thing. You have doors wide open. Let's challenge it. Let's challenge these bills that you may not agree with if you are able to. Every other bill this session, well, most of them locked in, off limits to referendum. I just want you to think about that. Why are there so many emergency clauses? I challenge you, if you are on the left and you're like, oh, well, all these things good, blue no matter who. Or even if you're on the right, red no matter who. I just want you to think. I just want you to consider these things. Consider what's going on. Why are there emergency clauses? Why? Ask why. Why do we need it? I ask the questions why as we cover every one of these bills. Why do we need it for this one? What is so important about this bill that we need an emergency clause? Why can't it be challenged by the people? They don't want you don't want your voices heard. They don't want it undone through the process. They don't want you to take away all their hard work that they're doing, to protect you, to do things for you, to make life better for you here in the state, while also making it more expensive, more unaffordable, passing all these taxes on. It's good. We're going to tax the companies. We're going to have recycling, but those costs are going to come back to you at the very end of the day. It's just something that I really, really want you to consider here. If these things are so good, why do they need an emergency clause? Why do so many bills include an emergency clause? That's the question I want you to ask your reps. Send them an email. Leave them a voicemail. Why do so many bills include emergency clauses this year? Why? What's the point of all that? Why do they include emergency clauses? Are they needed? Are we in a state of emergency and we don't know it? Or are we just doing those things so that we can't speak? We can't speak up. We can't have our voices heard. Is that the real reason? With that, go ahead and DM me your answer over on X. Tag at Evergreen RPT on X or Instagram, whatever you think it is. Remember, one law lets you vote. 6 others that we covered today lock you out. Olympia is raising taxes, rewriting rules, and calling it urgent. But the only real emergency is a silence. Stay loud, stay informed. See you next time right here on the Evergreen Report. In the meantime, you can follow us at Evergreen RPT on X and Instagram. If you have a referendum campaign, well, we'll amplify it. And of course, if you're still here at the very, very end, I do want to shout out today's sponsor of the podcast, For Fathers Apparel. I forgot to shout them out at the top. You're probably looking at this polo the whole time, being like, what the heck is it? This is a dog data polo. This one has actually been revamped since I've gotten this. So For Fathers, shop forfathers.com, shopforefather.com. Go over there. I'll pull it up here in a second. I'll show you this amazing polo. It's actually in green now. I think that's one of the coolest things, that they moved this to a green looking polo. It looks so much better. It looks almost as good as this one. It's still really cool. There's men's polos, kids polos, hoodies, daddy and me polo, all sorts of great matching things. It's great for any time of year. Right now we have Father's Day coming up on the horizon, so it's a great time to get shopping for dad. Finding the one I'm wearing here today, again, it's green now, right here. That same polo, exact same polo I have on, but green. Really cool here. Really cool color, really cool design. Lots of intricacies. Of course, you have dog bones, dog collars, dog dishes, fire hydrants, little paw prints. So if you have a dog, you love your dog, and we have a dad that loves his dog so much, and he was one of those dads that said, "Oh, this damn dog, I'm never gonna like this dog." And now they're best friends. Many years later, he needs this polo. He needs a fetch polo for him and his furry little friend. That he ultimately replaced you with later in life after you moved out of the house. So with that, guys, I'll see catch you here right here next time right here on the Evergreen Report.